Welcome back, Focus Learners, to another explainer. Today, we're stepping right into the dark, damp corridors of the civil hospital. Just picture this: an old, imposing building sitting up on a hill just outside the city. In the dead of night, it honestly looks more like an abandoned fortress. It's pouring rain outside, the windows are rattling, the walls are damp, and the air is just thick with that very specific smell of phenol and old medicines. We're heading straight up to the third floor to unpack a truly chilling medical mystery, one that totally blurs the line between superstition and hard science.
Okay, let's dive right into this. This grim rumor that haunted the hospital staff, it wasn't just idle break room gossip. It was a full-blown, terrifying local legend. People were literally terrified to take the night shift up there because of what supposedly happened during this one highly specific 60-minute window.
Section 1, The Devil's Hour, the legend of Ward Number 9. So picture the dead of night on the third floor. The atmosphere is just unbearably tense. The only things you can hear are the steady, echoing beeps of the medical monitors and that relentless rain pounding outside. The air itself even feels different, like heavy and freezing cold. And the parameters of this legend are super specific. Strictly between 2 and 3 a.m., there was this demonstrably high, entirely unexplained mortality rate. It happened so often that even the senior doctors would nervously joke about it, giving it this incredibly creepy nickname, the Devil's Hour. But, for the nurses and residents actually working those shifts, it was absolutely no laughing matter. Section 2, a desperate medical mystery. A stormy night brings an impossible case. Right, so it's a stormy night. It's the very first week of night duty for a 27-year-old resident named Dr. Arya Mehta, and he's working alongside a 25-year-old intern, Dr. Neha. They are totally exhausted, running on 18-hour shifts, fueled by nothing but cold tea and the low hum of those monitors. Then the clock strikes exactly 2:17 a.m. Suddenly, this terrible screeching sound echoes from the old elevator, and then boom! The lights on the entire floor completely fail, plunging the whole ward into total darkness, except for this one blinking red emergency light. Out of those shadows, a night nurse in a blue sari, her name's Kamala, calmly announces a new case is arriving. Seconds later, a panicked grandmother sprints down the hall, literally screaming for the doctors to save the child in her arms, and the baby is just 4 days old. The symptoms they're looking at are absolutely terrifying. The child isn't breathing at all, isn't making a single sound. Its tiny body is completely stiff. We're talking unnaturally rigid like a piece of wood. But the most alarming part, the baby's skin has turned this deep, bruised blue-black color. It looked as if every single ounce of oxygen had just been completely sucked out of its body. So they instantly hook the baby up to the monitor, and the screen flashes a horrifying number: 63% oxygen saturation. Dr. Arav immediately orders the oxygen flow to be cranked all the way up. They secure the mask, they pump the pure oxygen, but the number on the screen just refuses to move. 63, 63, 63. The baby's body is entirely rejecting the oxygen. And you can imagine, real panic begins to set in here. Amidst all these flashing red lights and the thunder literally shaking the windows, the grandmother starts screaming. She's yelling that it's an evil spirit because today is the new moon. She is absolutely convinced some dark entity has taken hold of her grandchild. And honestly, with the room temperature dropping like ice and the baby completely unresponsive to modern medicine, the terrified hospital staff kind of start to believe her. Intern Neha is visibly trembling, suddenly remembering another baby who died at this exact same time just a month prior. Now, what's really interesting about this next detail is the blood test. Dr. Arav decides to draw blood to figure out what on earth is happening. But as he pulls back the syringe, the blood isn't red. It is this thick, deep, unearthly black. It literally looks and behaves like heavy chocolate syrup. It's so jarring that when intern Neha drops a test tube in terror, the black fluid doesn't even spread on the floor. It just sits there, thick and congealed, smelling faintly of rotting metal. Crazy, right?
Section 3, Science over Superstition. Solving the impossible.
Suddenly, a memory from a medical college lecture flashes in Dr. Arav's mind: chocolate-colored blood. That specific detail leads him straight to this exact diagnosis: methemoglobinemia. It's a really severe form of poisoning. See, the blood actually does have oxygen in it, but the hemoglobin has been chemically mutated, so it absolutely refuses to release that oxygen into the baby's tissues. The child is essentially suffocating from the inside out, which totally explains why pumping pure oxygen over the baby's face was completely useless. So how did this actually happen? Well, Dr. Arav asks the grandmother what she fed the baby, and she confesses that she gave the child well water mixed with some ash from a holy man, trying to ward off the evil eye. But here's the tragic irony. That well water was heavily contaminated with nitrates. Those nitrates are what caused the chemical mutation in the baby's blood, turning it black and completely shutting down the oxygen transport. So the grandmother's superstitious attempt to save the baby from evil, that's exactly what poisoned it in the first place. Okay, so they have a diagnosis and they actually know the cure. A chemical called methylene blue. Neha sprints down to the storeroom, but she hits a massive bureaucratic roadblock. There is a heavy padlock on the door, guarded by a ward boy who insists, very stubbornly, that according to strict hospital rules, the storeroom absolutely cannot be opened until morning. As it dawns on them that the baby will never survive until morning, this chilling, totally emotionless voice echoes from the dark corridor. It's Nurse Kamla. She's standing there completely still, and she delivers this incredibly ominous warning. "Death cannot be stopped, doctor." She says it with this flat certainty, almost as if she's watched this exact tragedy play out before. Talk about an ultimate medical and moral dilemma. Dr. Arav has two choices. He can follow the rules, wait for morning, keep his job perfectly safe, and just watch the baby die. Or he can break the law. And honestly, Dr. Arav doesn't even hesitate. He grabs his heavy fire extinguisher right off the wall, smashes the padlock to pieces, and breaks into the storeroom. But there's a catch. The only vial of methylene blue he finds actually expired 15 days ago. Still, with Nurse Kamala smiling this really strange smile from the doorway, he decides to risk the whole shebang. They immediately inject the expired medicine into the baby's veins, and the wait is agonizing. Minute 1, the baby's breathing gets even shallower. Minute 2, the heart monitor slows to an absolute crawl. Minute 3, total silence. The oxygen numbers on the screen plummet down to 35. Neha literally stops breathing. But then it jumps to 40, then 60, then 85, and finally 95%. That steady, beautiful beep of the monitor fills the room. The baby finally begins to cry loudly, and that horrific black-blue color starts fading into a healthy pink. Against all odds, they did it. Section 4, the ghostly twist, the truth about Nurse Kamala. Flash forward a bit, the sun begins to rise, it's 5 a.m. and the rain has finally stopped. As the adrenaline starts to wear off, Neha realizes something is missing. She turns to the ward boy and asks a very simple question. Where did the older nurse in the blue sari go? You know, the one who warned them about death, the one who stood by the door silently watching that whole desperate procedure. The ward boy just looks at Neha in sheer terror. He drops his files and stammers out a horrifying truth. There is no night nurse named Kamla. She died 2 years ago, in that exact same ICU ward on a stormy night just like this one. Neha's blood runs completely cold. She realizes they had been taking instructions from a ghost all night long. No way, right? Section 5, breaking the curse, the origin of the Devil's Hour. Let's move along and see how this all builds together. Turns out, exactly 2 years ago on a stormy night, an arrogant senior doctor named Raghav Malhotra faced this exact same medical emergency. But when Nurse Kamla practically begged him to open the locked storeroom, Raghav refused to break hospital protocol. He chose the rules over the patient. And because of that delay, at 3:11 a.m., the baby's heart failed. A minute later, at 3:12 a.m., the sheer trauma and heartbreak of watching that happen caused Nurse Kamla to suffer a massive, fatal heart attack right there on the floor. And the crazy part? Just 15 minutes later, at 3:27 a.m., Dr. Raghav crashed his car on the slick, rainy highway, fleeing the hospital, and died instantly. 3 deaths in under 20 minutes. And that, my friends, is exactly how the Devil's Hour curse was born. So you see, the curse of Ward Number 9 wasn't just some random, malicious haunting. It was an echo of bureaucratic cruelty. Dr. Raghav followed the rules to the absolute letter, which resulted in 3 tragic deaths and birthed this terrifying curse that haunted the hospital. But Dr. Arif, faced with the exact same test, he chose differently. He chose empathy over bureaucracy. He smashed the lock, he used the expired medicine, and he actually saved a life. And because of that profound, brave choice, the restless spirit of Nurse Kamala finally found some peace. The curse of the Devil's Hour ended that very night. From then on, Never again did a patient mysteriously die between 2 and 3 a.m. in Ward No. 9. The cycle of tragedy was broken, and not by an exorcism or magic, but by a doctor who realized that our humanity must always supersede rigid protocol.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought for today's explainer. In a world bound by strict systems, heavy padlocks, and rigid protocols, sometimes the only way to save a life, or perhaps even lay a ghost to rest, is to pick up the fire extinguisher and completely shatter the rules. So I have to ask you, what rules are you willing to break to do the right thing? Think about that, Focus Learners, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.